All right, welcome to the Power Hour podcast. So we're here at Fidelity National Title again, and been a great event so far. We had lots of people coming out, making their first calls, and um, guys, anything going on in y'all's week that's been really cool?
No, we got a couple properties under contract this week, and then Jeff and I have three properties closing next week, so we got a big week next week. Other than that, no, nothing much. Jeremy, what do you got going on, man?
Actually, been learning a new skill. I've been getting more into business buying, so I've been building out that system, making those phone calls to brokers. Totally different conversation, but it's been a learning experience. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, dude, that's really awesome. I know it's certainly something I want to get into once we've closed down some more of our wholesale deals. Um, and it's interesting with Andrew and me and like the direct to seller business. We've been working on building out this new thing the past 2.5 months, and like now we're finally. I don't know why the hell like three of these things all converged on the same day. It's really annoying. Maybe my dispo guy can tell me why that happened. But anyway, I thought a really cool topic today. Like obviously, I want. Chantal with Fidelity come hang out with us so we can give a shout out to Fidelity. But one of the big topics I did also want to talk about is like the difference between the virtual communities like how Pace has, where it's amazing you can have community across the entire planet, but then also what we have with in-person communities and what the differences are, and then specifically like what you'd want to get out of an in-person community versus a virtual one. But we do have our first guest up. Dude, welcome to Power Hour. This is your first day here. How did it go? And second time. Oh, you fooled me. Okay, but yeah, tell us about like your experience with Power Hour, like some of the calls you've done, and then what you see is different between an in-person community event versus like a Zoom virtual one.
Oh, hi, I'm Dennis Dodson. Or looking here, my first podcast. So, all right, so Dennis Dodson, second time here at Power Hour. Um, I tried to call some people before. I've even attempted to come here at Power Hour, and didn't had no idea what I was doing. Was going off of YouTube videos and just trying to read up on it. As far as coming in last week, we got a script. I was able to see what process to go through and how to call and how to get to solutions and stuff like that, and kind of overcame the fear of actually calling and getting in contact with somebody. Uh, so made some calls, got quite a few rejections the past couple weeks, and I'm used to rejection, so it was okay. And yeah, so I'm here to learn. Great community. These virtual meetups, they're great. I was just in the Elephant Challenge with Pace Morby earlier this week, so was telling us how to find some foreclosure listings and such. And yeah, so going through that, but actually being here around people, hearing them call. Um, y'all are right here behind us to kind of listen in on our calls and kind of guide us. It's pretty good and I like it. So I'm gonna keep showing up every week until I got this down.
So, Dennis, what advice would you have for somebody that's out there that's brand new, that's maybe in the Elephant Challenge, and they find struggle in finding a community, whether if it's here in Houston or anywhere around? What advice would you give someone based on your experience that you've learned coming from the Elephant Challenge and then coming around here? I know this is your second time here, so you see value in it, but what advice would you give to somebody that is just getting started that wants to find a community very similar to what we're creating here in Houston?
So I went on the free Facebook group. Um, I just put in there, hey, I'm from Houston, Texas. I'm looking to meet up with some like-minded individuals and I'm trying to learn. As soon as I submitted that, I got plenty of people that were showing me meetups, and one of the main people that hit me up was George. I think he's in the other room with some people calling right now, but he showed me the Power Hour, sent me a couple invitations to the meetups, and yeah, so just I would go on the Facebook group and just ask around where can I meet some people, and they'll be in contact with you.
So one advice that I will give you, Dennis, I know it's your second time here and you're starting to hang out with us a little bit more. I would just say keep consistently coming out here, because if you consistently come, you'll consistently learn something new, and you're not only going to build skills, which we want to learn starting out, you also build networks as well too, and that's way more important than the skills that you can generate. Because if it wasn't for me coming out and hanging out with people like this, I wouldn't have been success. I wouldn't have partnered up with somebody like a Jeff Smith to where we're closing 3 deals next week. Like, and each of those are really good paychecks for us, right? So my point is keep consistently coming out here, but also build relationships with people, not just here in Power Hour, but expand it throughout the week. Now you guys have my number. Now you can text me, you can call me, you can, whatever questions you do have, let me know. We genuinely want to help you guys, right? So keep that in mind. So anyone else have any questions for us?
Yeah, Jeremy, you've been, I mean, you're in some pretty significant virtual groups now with like, the buying businesses, and obviously you've experienced it here. Like, what's the advice you think you'd give Dennis as well?
One of the things that I noticed that about the virtual meetups and stuff like that I see is a lot of people, they're not taking action. So some of those Zooms are designed for you to take action, but it gives you a spot that you can go hide behind the computer and not do anything. And by you coming out, and I think your story is you've been doing a lot of research for a really long time, right? But now that you're coming out, you're actually in the environment that you can actually take action. You're actually hanging out with people now that are doing the same thing. And I think I explained this to you last week. Like, you don't have to know everything. There's plenty of people up here that know, like these guys right here, they have a lot of wealth of knowledge. You can go ask them a question and they're going to help you out. And I think that's the big advantage over that.
Yeah. So Dennis, for you, as you're building up momentum here, and you see like there's tons of resources. George introduced you to all these meetups and different things, and you start to get introduced to people. One of the things we like to do in our Houston Sub2 group is something called Hot Seat, and one of the questions we ask is, where do you feel like is your next bottleneck, or where do you feel like you're most stuck that's stopping you from advancing to the next step on the journey? Not like what's going to stop me from buying a skyscraper, but like what is stopping me from the next step in the process.
I want to buy a skyscraper.
So up until I found this community, my stopping point was the community, was the networking. Once I got to a certain point, I didn't know what to tell the seller or what to tell the realtor or who to even refer to for questions. So like talking to George, and I was talking to you earlier this week when I was talking to some sellers and some real estate agents, I mentioned to them that I do have a team that I work with that can better explain the situations that we can get in or the solutions that we can find. So that was my biggest fear from calling, just not having the solution to bring them, which I think that, I can find that here.
I love it. All right. Thanks for coming out. We'll see you next week, man. Hopefully you can come out. All right. Next, who do we have next on deck?
I don't know. We got Sean Tall. Oh, yes. So Sean Tall is a generally amazing person, and she's been hosting us here at Power Hour at Fidelity. And Chantal, I met you like 2.5, 3 years ago, I guess. There was a very messy probate deal we were working through where the family had inherited the property. I had taken it to a different title company. And funny enough, there was another person buying land from this family on a different site. And Fidelity came through and got the deal done, whereas this other title company couldn't. And I reached out to you guys, and you all came in, saved the day, got it done. So I know that's something we've talked about a lot before, and why I use Fidelity so much is because that was such a huge deal for me. It was a 6-digit land development deal. But can you talk about, Dennis brought up something that's really great is, have you ever seen this TV show Burn Notice? Mm-hmm. It's a great show, and one of it's this spy show. It's based in Miami, and one of the things that he talks about in this is, you see in the movies, like it's always the one lone wolf, and Michael Weston, he's like an awesome secret agent, and he's always talking about he can't do any of this without a team behind him. So I thought that was very fitting that Dennis was talking about, hey, I'm not a lone wolf, I'm with a team. So Chantal, when us as investors are going out, what is the title company plays obviously such a huge role in conveying ownership and title insurance, but what are the other roles that that team member plays that maybe most people just aren't aware of that you all solve before we even know it's a problem?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the team, not even an analogy. That's a true fact. That's imperative. You are as strong as your weakest link. As far as title goes, the role that we play is making sure that title is clear when before you as the investor purchase it, and making sure that nothing comes up to bite when you're passing it along. So, as far as we're dealing with not just liens like city liens and obviously a mortgage, abstracts of judgment, whether it's a tax lien, federal lien, child support, all these different factors. We're also making sure that all heirs are accounted for, as much as humanly as possible. Now, the thing that is imperative about making sure that you have a title policy is that yes, everyone is human. Issues do happen where maybe something is missed. I personally had the experience when I was a practicing agent that I had a listing that had actually changed hands 3 times in the previous 10 years. And when we go to sell it, there is a 20-year city lien that is found that had been sitting there. And so I mean, that to me, that is my personal, this is it's maybe anecdotal for you, but it's really happened, in my case. And thankfully my seller had title insurance, so it didn't cost him anything in money or time. This had to be resolved immediately. It was taken care of, and we moved forward and went on down the line. So I've heard people say it's like, well, I as the investor I have title insurance, so it's perfectly fine. I can now sell it. That end buyer, they don't really need title insurance. Don't ever let any of your clients purchase anything without title insurance. So we are looking at the history of the property itself. We're also looking at the history of the seller themselves. So we're looking at their name, anything that's attached to their name that would affect the property as well. We specialize with curative issues. You've heard me say over and over again, that you bring us the problem. It is a tangled mess, and that is what we specialize in. When you're talking about what we do before you ever see it, and we're making sure that we're identifying all the players, all those little pieces of twine that are going through. And what we really do specialize in is making sure it's like, I'm going to come to you and say, Andy, Jeff, here's the problem, and it's never going to be sucks to be all at your we're always going to come with a solution in hand. Oftentimes, in reality, the scope of title is fairly narrow, and we're wanting to make sure that even if we can't solve it for you, we're coming in and saying, this is how it can be solved. Here are your options. This is where this is where that path is going to lead, and help you down that path where you then fix it, come back around, and we close. So
Chantal, so a lot of our viewers are very, very new to investing in general. So from like a very basic standpoint, because a lot of our viewers that watch this, they've never done a deal. They don't even know what a title company is. So how would you say, because you mentioned it when you started out, that you guys are very investor friendly.
yes.
So as an experienced investor, I understand how important that is. But for a newbie to like doesn't understand what that means, can you elaborate more what an investor friendly title company, why that's important to find somebody like a Fidelity like you guys? Why is that important?
So it does harken back to the messy issues. They're like, if you were to take a subject, a sub to transaction to a run of the mill, just do everyday residential, purchase and refi, they're gonna like sub to what? Are we buying sandwiches? What is this involving? And yeah, yeah, we're buying. Yeah, we're getting. I want ham on mine. Hold the mayo. Hold the mayo. So, but it truly is. You don't go to a GP doctor when you have a very specific issue. You're going to go to the specialist. It's the same thing with here, with this. So even and truly, when when any investor, new or otherwise, you want to make sure that everyone that you're dealing with, all of your vendors, are investor centric. It is crucial if somebody goes in and they're doing hard money, and now you're going to segue out. You need to have a investor centric hard money takeout specialist permanent financing, because it's the same thing. You're going to go to a lender that's going to be like, yeah, we can't do this. Yes, you can. You just don't know how. And just because it's hard doesn't mean you can't do it. And that's, we like the hard stuff. We can all do hard things. It's what
Yes.
makes us grow.
Definitely.
So so for the newbie investors, my most important advice is to connect yourself with mentors like y'all. It's like Jeremy, Jeff, Andy. You have to you're going to end up making very expensive mistakes. And the part that hurts my heart, because y'all know me, it's like I'm an investor myself. I eat, drink, sleep. I think this is how everyone changes the trajectory of their life. And I hate seeing people make expensive mistakes, because it does burn them, and they don't want to do it anymore. They're like, oh yeah, this is, it's all a scam. Yeah, no, it's not. This is how you control your destiny. And I can't say that enough. I think we should all be screaming that from the rooftops. Get into real estate investing. This is how you change your life, and it's how you control your life.
I love it. I love it. Anyone else? Any questions here?
So Chantal, you're the business development for Fidelity. So, I bring a lot of files to you all. What is the best method to reach out to you? Not necessarily just with generic questions like how does a contract work, even though I know you will take that call. But if somebody does want to bring their files here and get the Fidelity treatment, what is the best way they need to reach out to you and get that started?
So cell is always the best way to get a hold of me. If I don't answer, that means I died. So my cell number is 713-201-1576. The main number here is 966-4050. Truly, call me, text me, let me know. I will put you with the team that is going to best fit your needs. We have investor-centric teams here, so I want to make sure that that's where it's going. And it really doesn't matter what part of town it is. We are all over the city. We are all over this state. We are across the nation. So we actually deal with investors that are buying in, in Colorado, in Utah, in Arizona, in California. You name it. That's where we are. There are a few states that are there are attorney states, but I have contacts there that can at least put you with who is the right person. And that's what's really important to me. I'm never going to refer you to somebody that I don't know for a fact that I can find them and put my hands on them if I need to. So anyway, so again, cell number is the best way to get a hold of me. At that point, you'll send us the contract, and we take it from there. We do. And I do take those calls for especially new investors. I had someone sitting at my dining room table about a week and a half ago. We fed them dinner. We went through the contract. I highlighted everything that they needed to make sure that they were doing, making sure that these were the fees that they were looking at, because I did have someone who ended up costing himself $3,500 because he wrote the contract wrong. And that's what he, as an investor, was ending up bringing to closing. That's not how this is supposed to work. And so I really want to make sure that we're helping folks, making sure they're doing it correctly.
Thank you so much.
I love it. Thank you
pleasure.
so
Thank
much,
y'all.
Chantal. Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it. Do we want to get one more guest over here, or who should we? You want to? Jamie. Oh man, Jamie.
I love the end part that Chantal was talking about. I'm not going to refer you to somebody that I can't put my hands on. It's like, take that for what it's worth. She will go strangle people if that's what it takes. I'm not saying that she. Yeah, and you're like, we're all Well, Andy's within arm length, so we just got to beat Andrew out the door. Yeah, so we're good. Dude, Jamie, awesome having you here. And you're not in the sub 2 community itself, but because Power Hour has been open, and we've obviously loved having you here. But tell us about first who you are how you got into real estate, and what drew you to this community we have here. Why did this one stand out where other communities you said, hey, I'd rather be here at Power Hour every Saturday than another place?
Gotcha. So yeah, my name's Jamie. Hi, mom. So a lot of what I think drew me to this community, because like you mentioned, I am in a different community. Um, Actually, somebody that's in the community with me recommended, hey, we got this Power Hour thing that's going on. Um, you know, you should go check it out, see what's happening. And at that time, similar to Dennis earlier, right? It's like, oh man, I was trying to take this thing on my own. Doing it alone is a lot harder than people think it is. Social media, they make it seem easy. It's a shiny gem, but it's a lot harder than people realize. So I was like, let me try to find a community. Went through the other one, and it's fine. Not throwing shade or anything, but I came here, and a lot of what helped me stick really is kind of like you kind of hinted at it, right? It's open to everybody. You guys are very generous with the information, and you guys are all in it to help everybody win. And I think part of the biggest thing in that is that it's all varying skill levels, right? Like you can be the newbie, but if you show up in a room full of like people that are high level, top things, like there's just going to be a natural part where it's like, man, I feel like I don't fit in here at all. What do I even say? But you come here and you see a bunch of other newbies taking action. You see them all making mistakes, and then you see the people that are here to help them kind of fix that. It brings up the morale like quite a bit. Which is why I think the sub 2 community is so awesome. The whole go giver mentality is really what stuck out to me.
So I have one other question for you in particular. You're working with a team right now, and something that Jeremy was pointing out before is it's easy to be in a virtual community, hide behind a computer, and not actually do anything. Whereas here, you not only found a community of people to hang out with and learn from, but you found a team you could actually go squat up with and do stuff, which is awesome. Like that is the next step that a lot of people need to make, but they don't actually do it. And you've been working with that team for a while and having some good success. So what do other new people, if they want to join a team like that or do something, like what do they need to be fundamentally doing every day? Like is it the number of calls? Is it working hard? Is it consistency? Why have you succeeded on a team where other people have tried and failed?
So I think the biggest thing that you mentioned really is just consistency, and it's just showing up. And if you want to get into it, decide if you want to get into it, and then get into it, right? Like kind of like what I was saying earlier, it's like a shiny object when it's on the internet, but you need to show up every day, and you need to be willing to learn. Like it's fine, you're gonna make mistakes and everything along the way and whatnot, but as long as you're showing up and learning, and putting in the effort of improving just communication, really, it doesn't necessarily need to be with callers or sellers, because I know some people, they don't like talking on the phone. But you need to be able to meet people that are where you want to be. And I think this community has helped me kind of do that. Like Andrew, who's somebody that I'm working with, he's very great at talking to people. Very, they're closing up 3 deals this coming week, right? Like I want to be able to get to that point. And then where they're at, I'm sure that they have people they look up to, right? Like you need people to look up to. And you need to surround yourself with those people. And that's what the community gave me the opportunity to do. So, kind of like what Dennis mentioned earlier, you want to find the community that you can do that stuff with. And I think that'll make all the difference.
So Jamie's being really, really humble right now. Jamie, how many deals do we have under contract that you've generated in the last 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks or so? I think you've been with us for a month and a half in our team. 5 weeks. Okay, you've been with us for 5 weeks. How many properties do we have under contract that you generated? And then can you talk to us about those specific conversations that you had and why? What was the game changer when it came to you actually getting them under contract? And then now we've disposed now one, closed on one, we're closing on a couple of more. So tell me that. What was the difference?
Yeah, so as far as like the numbers go, he mentioned, I was on the team for 5 weeks now, and on average, I believe we've gotten 5 contracts in those 5 weeks that I've been a part of, and so about a contract a week average. Yeah, just for me, right? Like we have other people that are on the team as well, and they locked up another contract, and then these they're all killing it in their own respective spaces. And I think the biggest difference, again, kind of really comes back to the community, right? Like before you get into this business and you need to generate your own leads, you need to generate your own script, you need to generate your own buyers, you need to generate all sorts of other things on your own, which is, it's possible. Like people can do it, it's just difficult. So, being a part of your team, right? Like we have somebody that's dedicated to finding the really niched down leads that give us our highest chance of success. And we have somebody that if I'm stuck, right, like Andrew can take over and, knock it out of the park. And I can be like, okay, cool. I can take that and apply it to my next call. Um, and I think it's just having like that extra support that really helped make the difference. And I can kind of see where I've made my mistakes in calls based on how he talks and just listening back. And yeah, I think that's really what's made a lot of the difference as far as before and after joining the team.
I love it. And so I'll ask a question. I'll piggyback on what Jeff was asking earlier. We'd like to do a lot of hot seats, when we do our masterminds. So my hot seat question to you is, where are you at in your business right now, Jamie? And where do you feel like you're struggling the most that we can help you out with? Where do you feel like you're struggling?
So in my business right now, a lot of what I've really been focusing on is just understanding the art of communication. We were briefly talking about this earlier, right? Like, and I mentioned it, just knowing how to talk to people and find out what the issues are that they're having. So that way you can say, hey, if this, and that are happening, maybe this is a solution that we can provide to help out with it. Right. Like Jeff has given me a lot of guidance on that stuff as well. Check out his YouTube. And but yeah, I'd say as of right now, it's just kind of learning to communicate the benefits that we provide is what I'm working on right now. And then the next steps after that would be to start, um, I guess, going into like my own markets and stuff, learning to generate my own leads that I can then communicate with and then take back to you guys and be like, all right, help me get this thing moved.
Jeff, I have a question for you because, as you guys don't know, Jeff has a sales training course, and the reason that I am so good at making these calls and closing them is because Jeff taught me more than everything he needs to know that I need to know, and I've just taken that and then just went and applied it. So I think a lot of people, Jeff, they make mistakes where it's like they're overly consuming content and they're not applying as much. So, what advice, Jeff, would you give to somebody that's relatively newer, joined a team, but would you tell somebody to say, hey, should you perfect this script or should you continue to make calls and take action? What advice would you give to somebody? Would you tell them to say, hey, perfect the script? Or would you say, hey, go take action, go make as many calls as you can?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to be said for you're better off taking imperfect action than just not doing anything at all. But there does come a point where what Jamie has also learned and what he's getting from you is Jamie is also applying a feedback loop of, oh, I just heard how Andrew handled this conversation. I can apply this going forward. So if I had to choose one or the other, I'd say, yeah, just get on the phones, but be more self-aware of what worked and what didn't and apply it more. And I think it comes back to what Jamie was talking about is like you start off as a lone wolf, but because he's on a team, his success is accelerated so much more. And actually, I wanted to ask Jeremy about that too, because you would have some really good advice to give because you've been on some teams, you've worked some of your own leads too. Like, what do you feel like is good advice for a newbie if they're evaluating a team to go work with? Because they're going to get hit up by all kinds of people. Like, how do they vet who is a good team to work with that they're going to get real value from and the best likelihood of success? What advice would you give?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that comes down to is putting yourself out, coming to places like this, like Power Hour or any other meetups, meeting people, and I think it's as you start to see who has teams, I think it's approaching them and seeing also if it's a good fit for you and your personality. They may be interviewing you, but you also need to be interviewing them, making sure it's a good fit. Like Jamie, for example, like he found a really good fit with Andrew, right? It took time, but just developing that relationship and make sure it's a good fit for both of you guys.
And then Andrew was talking about, and Jamie were both talking about like learning to build up that conversation. I got to teach you a bit on sales skills as well. And I remember Jennifer sending me a message like, man, Jeremy's calls are getting so much better. Okay, that's my shameless plug. But seriously though, as like as much as I could teach you or somebody else can, if you don't do anything, if you aren't self improving, none of that matters. So as you were taking more action, how did you continue to improve even after you'd gone through, some sales training?
Yeah, it just comes down to, like you said, you can sit here and tell me all the until you're blue in the face, right? About you should say this at this, or maybe you should approach it this way. But honestly, the only way I'm ever going to learn is by being on the phone talking. Like that's the only way you're going to learn and make those mistakes. I think it comes down to you need to fall forward, right? And you can't find that out unless you're on the phone actually taking those actions. And I think that's been the biggest thing. Like your course, I stumbled through a lot of my conversations. I used to ask a lot of questions about condition and stuff like that, and I was never asking the right questions. You taught me how to ask the right questions and when, and then it was my responsibility then from there to take that knowledge and actually go apply it and learn and asking those questions and how I need to ask them in my way. But I couldn't have done that unless I went and took action.
Yeah, and that's the big key takeaway. You can consume all the YouTube you want until you actually get in there and start applying and say, oh, that's how that feels. That's my reaction. This is how this works. Like, you don't take action. I was speaking with somebody a few days ago, and she was talking about how I know how to make the offer call, but I'm so scared to, and I'm not making the offer call. Like she recognized it was a problem. It's the exact same idea. If you don't take the action, well, you certainly aren't going to get better than that. And if you're not making offer calls, you certainly aren't going to get any deals out of it. So,
Yeah, and I noticed that doing some Zooms and stuff like that, we've noticed, we give people homework and stuff, and only like maybe 10% of the people are doing the homework. And I think that's kind of like what you're saying. They're not taking action and they're afraid to have that conversation with whoever, an agent or a seller or whatever. And they're never going to know how to do it because they won't take that step.
I think those are both really, really good. And I want to piggyback on what Jeff was saying too, taking action. A lot of us, when we get started, we're new, we think we're going to call an agent or call a seller and we're going to mess up. Like we genuinely, like in our head, we think, I want to make the right call and I want to make this to where this is the deal that I have. And they think, oh, I want to perfect that. And the reality is, I can go back to my very first deal that I did. It was sub 2. It's probably the best deal that I did all year. I didn't know what a script was. I didn't know how to talk to people, but I just figured out they had a problem and sub 2 was able to solve it. And I was looking back and I go re-listen to those phone calls and I'm like, holy crap, I sucked. But why did I get the deal? Because I found somebody that had motivation, that had a problem, and I was able to solve it. And so going back to what Jeremy was saying was that like even if you are not very good on the phones, you got to identify that somebody has a problem, and that's why we're having so much success with our direct to seller business. Is that we're identifying people that have problems. Then you can go and be a really good negotiator, and everything that Jeff taught us and everything that Jeff worked on to train us to do that, then that applies. But if you're applying that early on and trying to be the best closer you can be on a cold call, like to me, that's like just figure out, gather the information, and then bring it back to the team or bring it back to somebody like us that we can help you guys close the deals. But again, you have to filter out through a lot of bad leads, even though you think, hey, they're open to creative. the numbers are going to work, and then I spend 45 minutes underwriting it, it's like, just call the seller, call the agent, and figure out what is going to take to get the deal done. And I think that a lot of that is, with experience with us, because I mean, we've gone through like underwriting a deal and saying, okay, this is the perfect offer. Then I'm going to call the agent or the seller, and they're just going to be like, oh no, I don't care about creative. Just give me a damn cash offer, right? So, but most of us, when we're younger and when we're getting started, I wouldn't say younger, when we're getting started, we don't really understand that. So I just wanted to kind of put my 2 cents in there to figure out, hey, let's just like what you guys were saying, take action, take action, take action. And yes, there's got to be a feedback loop to where we're just going back to fixing it, going back to fixing it. But if you're not taking action, if you're not making those mistakes, you'll never get to the people that actually need to sell, right? And so hopefully that made sense.
Jamie, thanks for coming and hanging out with us. We appreciate you, bro. Is that our last guest?
That is our last guest. I think our producer wants to wrap it up.
All right, guys, that is it for this week's episode of Power Hour. If you're not in the Facebook group, then I don't know how you found your way onto this YouTube channel, but come hang out with us. We'd love to have you. You can have absolutely no sales training, no idea what to do. This is the place to come and learn. Peace out. This is Power Hour Podcast.
Woo!